be back again to this tutorial. You are so much welcome. And today's topic, we are gonna look at variables. Variables in Python. No, that's not the SP. It's variables. So today's topic, we are gonna look at variables in Python. Okay. So you might be asking yourself that what are variables and what do they do in Python, what's their use, how are they applied. So don't worry, cause in today's tutorial we are gonna look at variables in their detailed format. Okay. So the previous tutorial, it was all about comments. If you missed it, just find the link in the description below and find about comments and how to apply them, because here I'm using a multi-line comment. If you don't know about comments, please, the link is in the description below. Okay. Now let me first and foremost, I want to inform you that Python has no command for declaring a variable. As it is the case, we are with functions and loops. We have lists in Python. We have dictionaries in Python, tuples, but all these they have their commands. But with a variable has no any command. But a variable is created at the first time you assign a value to it. Okay. Assign a value. The first time you assign a value to a variable, that's the first time you create it. Okay. So meaning that a variable is created when you assign a value to it. Now variables, sometimes you can refer to them as containers for storing data values. Okay. For example, if I talk about a cup being a container, all of us have cups in our homes. A cup, actually every morning you will use a cup to take tea, and the next morning you can use a cup to eat porridge, and the next morning you can also use a cup to take juice. To take juice. So here we are seeing that a cup it's a container. Okay, it's a container that is holding different data types. Now here, these are data types in our homes. Okay, it's holding different data types. So that's the same case here in Python, that variables contain different data types. These are containers just for storing data values. Okay. And another person can say that a variable is a name which is used to refer to a memory location. Okay. In computer, all of us know that a computer has memory, and the computer uses memory to refer the index of the currently open programs and the currently used things at the moment. Okay. So variables also play a very big part because they're stored in memory. Okay. They're stored in memory, and they take some space. They tell the memory part of the computer that no, this space, it's reserved for this integer or this string, this string data type, as we shall look at them in the episodes to come. Okay. And another person can also say that a variable is an identifier and used to hold a value. Okay. So this is the SP of identifier. Okay. Identifier. No, it's identifier. So that is it about some key definitions of a variable. We don't need to specify a variable because Python is a type infer language, and smart enough to get a variable type. Okay. We don't need to specify. This is a point. Let me write it. Specify a variable. We don't need to specify a variable because Python is a type infer language and smart enough to get the variable type. Actually, all those were some of the definitions of of a variable. Now in our next chapter, I think let's look at a variable assignment. Okay, so we are going to look at a variable assignment. Okay, now you might be asking yourself about what's variable assignment. Some people, as a person can use either variable assignment or variable or declaring a variable. Okay, yeah, so in Python we don't need declaration to reserve memory space. Let me write this one as a point. We don't need declaration to reserve memory space. A variable is done. Variable declaration is done automatically when we assign a value to a variable. Okay, think of a variable as a name attached to a particular object. Okay, as I talked earlier using the cup example. So here we see that tea, we see that juice and porridge, all of them are attached at the cup. Okay, in another way, in Python, a variable doesn't need to be declared in advance. This is another point, by the way. Let me write it. Declared in advance. Yeah, we don't need to declare a variable in advance in Python, as it's the case in many other programming languages that, such as C and C# and C++. We've seen these languages that before using a variable, for example, when it's gonna store a name, we first need to declare that variable as a string variable, then afterwards we can use it to store a name. Or if it's gonna store a number, we first need to declare that variable as an integer or as an int, a variable, then afterwards it can store the number. But with Python that's not the case. Okay, we don't need to declare a variable in advance. To create a variable in Python, just assign it a value. Okay, just assign it a value. Just assign it a value and start using it right away from there. Yeah, assignment is done with single equals sign. Okay, there is also this doubles equals sign. When you are going to do a variable declaring or assigning a variable to the certain data type, we use this single equals sign. But if we use this double equals sign with the variables, that will be very, very, very wrong, and our program will crash. Okay, why? This is because this double equals sign, they say that you know, there are two statements. If I say that n is equals to 300, and I also say that n is equals to 300. Now these two statements, the first statement tells me that or tells us that n is currently assigned to 300, and if we want to print 300, then we can print n in our program. It's holding the value or the data 300. Okay, but this next statement, it simply tells us that n is equals to what? To 300. Okay, so if we are to print this out, it will be false. Why? This is because n is not equals to 300. Okay, yeah, it's a false statement. If I was to use a boolean data type, which we shall look at in the episodes to come. Okay, yeah, so assigning a variable, we use this single equals sign. Okay, let's talk about variable types in Python. Okay, a variable types, variable types. Here A is missing. Okay, so let's look about variable types. In many programming languages, variables are statically typed. What does this mean? Statically typed, let me write this. Statically typed. This means something that is static. Means that if you put it there, it won't have that capability of changing itself or removing itself from there. You put it there and it will be there for years and years. not until you change it manually yourself. Okay, so that means that something static doesn't has that capability, doesn't have that capability of changing itself. So here we see that in many programming languages variables are statically typed. That means that a variable is initially declared to have a specific data type, and any value assigned to it during its lifetime must always have that data type. Let me write here, have that data type. Okay, yeah, so that's the case with variables in other languages, but with Python here we can see that variables are not subjected to this restriction. A variable may be assigned to a value of one type and later reassigned to a value of different types. Okay, let it can be reassigned. Is that the SP? Yep. Let it can be reassigned to a value of a different data type. Okay, we shall look at it in the examples to come. So if I type outside that that n is equals to 300, and I print right now, I print n, and I print n, we shall see that the value of n it will be 300. Okay, here I think the value of n is 300, but I can also change the value of n, and I put here n, I assign it to a string. Let me use the single quotes, and I put my name white man. Okay, I put my name Moses, then I print again n. Okay, if I print n, now here you are seeing that the data type of n has already changed to a string, and it's him what, and it's Moses. Okay, so this means that the variables in the variable types in Python are not subjected to that static way of typing like in other programming languages, but they are dynamic. I can declare a variable, but later on in the code I can change it and it will remain correct. Okay, yeah, so let me look at another point about variables in Python, and this is a chained assignment. So you'll be asking yourself, what's chained assignment? And now chained assignment, actually Python also allows chained assignment, which makes it possible to assign the same value to several variables simultaneously. Okay, for example, if I do x is equals to y and is equals to z and is equals to 50. Okay, this is a chain assignment. Okay, now if I copy this statement and I paste it here, and then I print there the value of x, I print the value of x, we shall see that the value of x is 50. Okay, here in our console. If I still print the value of z, we shall still see that the value of z is 50. So this is a chained assignment, and it's also supported by Python. Okay, yeah, so now in next chapter let's look about object referencing in Python. Okay, now what's object referencing? What is actually happening when you make a variable assignment? This is known as object referencing. What's happening at that time when you make a variable assignment? This is an important question in Python because the answer actually differs from what you would find in many other programming languages such as C++ and C# that I talked about in the earlier hour. Given that Python is a highly object-oriented language, virtually every item in Python program is an object of a specific data type or class. Every item in Python is an object of a specific data type. Okay. Now for example, let me come back here. For example, when presented with a statement that print 500, okay, 500, it's an integer. Okay, if I write it here, print 500, all of us know that 500 it's an integer. Okay, this means that it falls under the integer class. It's a number. Okay. Yeah, so if you are provided with such a statement, a Python interpreter does the following. Okay, the Python interpreter, first of all, it will create an integer object. That means that if we had created, oh sorry, here let me remove that value. That means that if I had created a string, if I had printed a string, it would first created a string object. Okay, if I printed a string, for example, if I printed a cup print, then I print a cup, and in between of my quotes I print a cup. Okay, it will first of all create a string object. But given that I've printed 500, which is an integer, first of all Python will create an integer object. Okay, after doing that, Python gives it a value of 500. Gives it a value of 500, and after giving it a value of 500, it displays it to the console. Okay, it displays it to the console. So these are the three things that are done, object references with Python. Okay, if you want to prove this, here if I print this, we can see that I'm printing 500. Okay, if you want to confirm or find out that Python creates an integer object of 500, I can print type of 500. Then here we see that 500 belongs in the class of integers. Okay, or in the class of numbers. But if I printed a cup here, if I print maybe the name of a dog, and I run, we shall see that a dog is printed here. Okay, in our console. Now if I want to confirm that Python first creates a string object, I can print here type of dog. Here we shall see that it's a string. Okay, so in this scenario we confirm that Python does these steps accordingly. Okay, it will first create an integer object. If I'm printing like 500, which is a number, then it gives it a value of 500, then it displays it in the console, as we saw in the earlier example. Okay, then lastly, we are gonna look at the rules of variables. They can't be declared in a sluggish way. Okay, yeah, and the first rule is that a variable is case sensitive. Okay, a variable is case sensitive. In this case, let me first grab these ones, let me erase them. In this case, if I write the variable of a name and assign it to Tom, and I write another variable of a name and assign it to Eric, and then I print the first name, and okay, if I print the first name, we shall see that the first name is Tom here in our console. But if I print the second name, we shall see that the value of the second name is Eric. Okay, this means what? If I use capital letter at the beginning of the variable name, and in the second variable I use a smaller n, I see that these are totally different variables. Okay, so put it in mind that variables are case sensitive. Okay, yeah. So the second rule of variables is that variables only consist letters from A to Z and the numbers numbers 0 to 9. Okay, and an underscore and an underscore. These are the only characters allowed in a variable. Okay, and another rule of a variable, another rule of variables, they have to begin with a letter or an underscore. Okay, or an underscore. This means that if I'm to write my variable, I'm only allowed to begin it with a letter such as this name, or I can still begin it with an underscore like this. Okay, but if it happens, so here if I print name, it will still be valid. Okay, it will print Tom. But if I begin my variable with a number, it will be very wrong. If I put here 2, so already I'm seeing an error. Here you are seeing an error, and here we are seeing a red highlighting. Okay, so that's the error that we see when you begin with a number. Okay, and that's another rule of variables. So another rule of variables, it's that variables can't contain spaces. Okay, we see that variables can't contain spaces. For example, if I want to print my first name and I write that first name is equals to Thompson, this will be totally wrong. If I print first name, now we shall see that we shall get an error. If I print first name, we shall get an error, invalid syntax. Okay, but if you join these words using an underscore, this will turn to be a valid statement. Okay, so if I print again, I'll see my name Thompson as my first name. This means that a variable can't contain space. A variable can't contain any space. Okay, then actually the last rule of variables, it's that a variable, actually reserved keywords can't be used as variables. What are reserved keywords? You may ask yourself. Reserved keywords these are words that come along with Python. They are inbuilt. Okay, for example, a word like for. Okay, we know that if we are going to do for loops, we use a for keyword, we use while keyword. Okay, if we are gonna write an if statement or a decision tree, we use if keyword and else if. Okay, and else if. So all these are reserved keywords in Python, so you can't use them to declare a variable. If I try to declare a variable and I put here that 4 is assigned to 90, this code will totally be wrong. Okay, for today we have now looked at variables. Okay, so I would like to say bye to you, and in the next episode you are gonna look at keywords to see what are keywords and how to use them. Okay, yeah, so bye bye for now. Subscribe to the channel, like and comment, ask questions, and let's interact with each other. Thank you.